You know, the trending issue is the 2024 budget, the budget of a new beginning, presented by the governor of the state, His Excellency Dr. Otti OFR, 2 days ago. And as expected, we've been getting reactions from our people. Of course, that's how it should be. When a democracy, people would want to know how they are being governed. Questions are being asked. And as expected, we've also seen criticisms. That's the beauty of democracy. But the most important thing is that this government is poised to serving our people with sincerity, with commitment, with dedication, and with focus. For the first time in our history, we saw something we've never seen, the kind of budget we've never had. You have the highest, this is the highest budget, the biggest budget ever in our history as a state. Budget of 567.2 billion. 567.2 billion naira. That is the 2024 budget presented to the Abia State House of Assembly by the governor for consideration and approval. It is a well thought out budget. It is a budget that was carefully prepared. You had key government appointees and employees. You had commissioners, MDs and GMs of different departments and agencies. You have permanent secretaries, you have directors and all the rest of them. Make inputs, in the preparation of the budgets. Because of course, people in charge of ministries were expected to submit all their proposals. It is from here that you come up with what you would want to, spend or generate. So the two subject matters that I would want to tackle very briefly are the issues of the amount to be borrowed by the government and the amount allocated to youth and sports. First, let me start with the issue of the amount to be borrowed. And like I said earlier, people are at liberty to ask questions. That's the beauty of democracy. Now, it is important to understand that there is nowhere in the world where a government does not borrow. Borrowing has never been considered a crime anywhere. Even our former presidential candidate, Mr. P2B, during the campaigns, emphasized so much on borrowing, on what, if anybody wants to borrow, if the government wants to borrow, if an institution wants to, what it should borrow for, what the government should borrow for. That should borrow for production. You should borrow for industrialization. That you should not be borrowing for consumption. And this has always been the position of Governor Otti. Go and read his articles on this column that ran for several years on this day outside the box. You will see where he had used these arguments on countless occasions. Now, considering the situation we have on ground in Abia, where there is dearth of infrastructure, our institutions are in a very shambolic state. Our industries are non-existent. They have since gone comatose. They lie comatose as we speak. And now, the governor wants to re-industrialize Abia. Abia was, especially Abia, was once industrialized to an extent, to a great extent. But all the industries that once employed thousands of our youth, all the industries that once generated revenues for government, then have all disappeared. So, how are we going to ignite the kind of economic activities, the kind of economic prosperity that we desire in Abia? The only way is to industrialize the states. And in doing so, you require resources to do so. The most important thing is that the governor has made it clear, and that is how it has been captured. Of course, he is very grounded in the field of economics and financial management. So he knows what to do to get Abia going, to get Abia moving forward. And that is what he has, the package he has come up with. Because once you invest heavily in key institutions, once you industrialize the state, once you build infrastructures, people will find Abia ideal environment. They will find Abia conducive for investment. And that's exactly what the governor wants to do. Now, there are key projects which will not just, ignite economic activities, but will also generate revenues, massive revenues for the government. For example, look at the Abia State Industrial Innovation Park at Owaza, where key players in the in the oil and gas sector are speedily going there, showing interest. Now, for all those reputable, institutions and industrialists to come to that place and make real, their plans and programs, you will need to invest massively in infrastructure there. If you go to Awaza, it's like you're literally going to hell. There's no road, there's no water, there's no electricity, there's no security. These are key challenges that the government is desirous of tackling, so as to encourage that industrialization that is coming there. The Abia Industrial Innovation Park is a well thought out project, well organized, that the government has its stake, the community people, every industry that comes up, the community people have a certain percentage, statutory percentage attached to them. These are measures being put in place to bring prosperity to the doorstep of Abia. And the only way to do it is you must have the economic wherewithal to do it. Look at America today. America is indebted to the tune of $31 trillion. But America is still described as the biggest, by far, the biggest economy, the most powerful economy, the strongest economy, by far. But they are indebted to the tune of $31 trillion. So what does that tell you? So you see that is why I said it's not about borrowing, but it's what you want to do with the money you've borrowed. How you want to repay the money you have borrowed. Are you borrowing to consume? Are you borrowing, to indulge in financial recklessness, to enjoy yourself, or you're borrowing to create wealth, to ignite prosperity, to make life more meaningful for your people? That is the vision of Governor Alex Otti. Yes, it's in order for people maybe to use themselves to assume, to assess, to imagine that we'll be borrowing for consumption. Of course, it's an impossibility. Going by what is contained in the budget, as it's clearly or was clearly laid on the table at the State House of Assembly, it's there for anyone to see that 84% of the budgetary allocation goes to capital projects, but mega 16% goes to recurrent, expenditures. What does that tell you? It tells you the intention of the governor, the intention of the government to ensure that what will be of utmost priority is the welfare and well-being and good of our people. That is what the government wants to do. Of course, you are not expected as a government to spend outside the budget. You are not expected. So, as long as it has been stated, it's a criminal offense. So, as long as it has been clearly laid down, stated, this is what you have. 84% of the budget going on capital projects, your health sector, your education sector, infrastructure, industrialization, all the rest of them. That is where it is captured. We had a former governor in the person of late Dr. Sam Mbakwe. He borrowed hundreds of millions of dollars. I asked question, go research. What did he do? He invested massively in infrastructure. He invested in industrialization. He industrialized the old demo states. He created jobs. He generated prosperity. Unfortunately, the government was interrupted. The government was cut short. And going forward, you had mediocres who did not appreciate the importance of those industries. So that is where Governor Alex Otti is returning to. He wants to take Abia back to the days of Sam, where you build industries, you have partnership, you have arrangements, you will generate wealth. Now look at Abia State, medical village that the governor talked about, we want to build. And the governor repeatedly made it clear during the campaigns, we are not just While we are going to build general hospitals, in the 3 senatorial zones, this one is completely different. The medical village will be something extraordinary. And the governor did say that Nigeria spends 1.6 billion in medical tourism annually. $1.6 billion on medical tourism annually. And said, made it clear that his targets, by the time we would have finished building the medical village, the target will be 10% of the money. And you know what that means? That's $160 million. And that's about 160 billion going by the exchange rate of today. So if you get your arrangements, your strategies, your plans, your vision right, you will, we will swim in prosperity in Abia State. By the time Governor Otti would have finished doing what he wants to do for the people of Abia State. This is a new dawn. This is a new Abia. And we're doing it completely different from what was obtainable in the past. At least everyone can see the direction the government is headed. Thank God, this is a new budget. A budget prepared by Abia State government, not a budget inherited, not a budget that was varied. Okay? So, we are taking responsibilities, we have responsibility, and we are prioritizing the needs of our people. So that, everyone will know that this is a government that actually came to serve. Another subject matter that, I was on air in the morning. I had a radio program listening to a few persons. In fact, my interviewer even raised the issue of what was allocated, to youth and sports, and said it's small, it's mega. So I had to take time to explain to him, because sometimes when people see these figures, see percentage, they do not bother to translate it to what it represents in cash, in money. They look at figures, they look at percentage. So I had to explain that 3.1% that was allocated to youth and sports, represents 17.577 billion. Go and check it. Go and do the maths. 17.577 billion. Let me say just 17.5 billion. You know what it means? And I did explain to him, and I want to also explain that you are allocating 3.1% to youth and sports does not mean that youths, exist in isolation. That they do not stand the opportunity, the chance to also benefit in other spheres where you have budgetary allocations that will take care of the needs of the people. For example, look at what we are going to do in the education sector. We have a lot of youth who are students who are going to be beneficiaries of the transformation, the revolution that is going to happen in the education sector. You have other areas, SMEs. You see many areas where youth are going to benefit. So youth and sports is 3.1 billion. Well, sorry, 3.1%, and that 3.1% represents 17.5 billion. So it's massive, it's huge, it's humongous, and people will feel the impacts. By the time these figures, you begin to implement these budgets, you will see the impacts in the lives of our people. Governor Otti is intentional about getting it right. He's very intentional about writing our checkered history. It's our state, and we have the golden opportunity to turn things around for the good of our people. We'll continue to discuss the budget. We'll continue to deliberate. We'll continue to offer explanations. People are free. People are entitled to their opinions. And we are open to scrutiny. That is the beauty of democracy. That is how a government should be. That you ask questions does not mean, we take your questions or your suggestions or your criticisms for granted. But we just require people to be fair and objective. For example, I listened to the PDP, Abia State PDP, the spokesman of the party said that by allocating 16% on recurrent expenditure means that the governor wants to amass wealth for himself. I don't know. I started laughing. Our people say, so when someone starts pouring sand in the course of a fight, it means the whole thing is over. Someone must have been defeated. So for you to look at the budget as it is, receiving enormous commendations from people in terms of, looking at the percentage, 84-16, and you still say that the governor did it because he wants to. It means that's a complete loss of what to say. But we accept that, like I said, that is the beauty of democracy. This government is poised to serving our people. The only way you can encourage investors to come and invest in Abia is if you industrialize the state. Is if you create an enabling environment, build infrastructure, massive infrastructure, provide security, invest in healthcare, and people will come. And you're going to make a lot of money. And our people will feel the impact. You have a lot of, very talented people in Abia. You have businessmen, you have people who have skills, different kinds of skills, doing all kinds of businesses in Abia. The governor wants to take their business activities to a whole new level. And so a lot of measures are being prepared to enable them succeed. We can export like those that are doing in different factories in China. We can replicate the same thing in Abia. Of course, go to many places in Abia. You see places that like, clusters where you have tailors, have artisans doing all kinds of things. The government can prepare the enabling environment, provide a platform, create decent environment, give them the necessary backup, give them the necessary support, give them the necessary enablement to export their goods, to export their wares. And that is one of the ways to generate funds. Don't forget that our governor, His Excellency Dr. Alex Otti OFR, defined tax as government share of the prosperity it has created amongst its populace. All those tellers you see, sitting at different half lines, sharing one room, having 10 persons sharing one room. If you build a factory, you can, whether you call it, an industrial zone or whatever, where people can go. Tellers, maybe you have tellers in their hundreds or in their thousands. They will produce, they will pay tax, because there is a kind of atmosphere that you create where they will have decent environment, where they will have electricity, where they will have water, they will have everything. Nobody is extorting them. No room for double taxation. Of course, we've stopped double taxation. Everything is consolidated revenue. Nobody's coming to paste 10 demand notices on your door. There's no room for that, and I'm saying it publicly. Nobody will pay operational permit, business license permit, infrastructural levy, countless of them. What you have now is consolidated revenue. Consolidated revenue. The only thing that might be different from that is the ASEPA fee. That is the only thing that is likely to be different from others. But every other thing is consolidated revenue. So if you create that kind of environment, that kind of business environment, people will freely, people will excitedly, people will joyously pay you tax. And you can't underrate what comes from tax. That is where the governor is going. And by the special grace of God, he's going to succeed. Thank you. Thank you. The 2024 budget is the first of its kind. Thank you. The history of Abia State. If properly implemented, Abia will be a force in less than 4 years. Thank you, Anya Daniel. That is a very important point, because we've had a situation where budgets, are read and with all kinds of promises. In the end, you discover that 40% of the budget, will not be implemented. Most of the budgets run below 40-50% implementation. It's a fantastic point, because we must also challenge ourselves. Implementation is key. Implementation of the budget is key. And we expect people to put us under pressure. Of course, we have the mindset. We want to put pressure on ourselves to succeed, to do the needful, to meet the expectations of our people. And we are ready to do that. Thank you for that very important point you made there. Thank you. I just choose to discuss these 2 points. We are still, we'll be taking them bit by bit as people add their views, make suggestions. We'll continue to, interrogate the budgets, do the necessary explanations, make people to understand what the promise, the promise the budget holds for for our people, we continue to do that. So don't forget that it's capital project is 84%, recurrent expenditure 16%. I understand somebody, in fact I just saw a few minutes ago, somebody was making reference to the issue of borrowing and was talking about P2B, not criticizing the governor, not saying anything because it's not federal government. Well, in the first place, we're not interested in joining issues with all those people. It's okay for people to aid their views, but it's only those who live in Abia, or those who have visited Abia, or those who come to Abia, or those who are interested in knowing what is happening in Abia, that will understand the magnitude of our problem, the rot, the decay and the deterioration. And if you don't think outside the box, if you not do the needful, then you will not be able, because we need to we don't need to crawl, we don't need to move on a snail speed. You need to ignite action, generate prosperity, and repair whatever you are borrowing. It's in our interest, and we are dealing with a master, somebody who is very grounded in that field. So there's nothing you are coming to teach him about, borrowing. He knows what is involved, he knows what is at stake. Because creating the environment for our people, creating prosperity for our people, providing our people with infrastructure of all kinds is key. Creating the enabling education environment for our people to school, our pupils and students to school, is of utmost priority, and it's not something that is ready to wait. You can't have 900 and something private schools in slums, some of them in 1 room, in 2 rooms, batches, and you say that government will continue to. No, you can't pretend. That's why we allocated a whopping 20% to the education sector in the 2024 budget. That tells you the audacity of determination, the audacity of desire, the audacity of vision of the governor to ensure that education is given a first lift, that we turn things around for our people. It was the former US President, George Washington, who said, our effort as a nation can never be swifter than our effort in education. And it's a fact. There's nothing you do that can be swifter, that can take greater priority than education, over education. Because that is what lays the foundation. That is what gives you the platform. That is what gives you the enablement. That is what gives you the direction to succeed at all times. That is what will give you the inspiration. That is what will enable you to think critically, to understand where you're going. So, if you look at what FG that the person was making reference to allocated to education is 7.9%. Ours is 20%. You look at health, FG is 5%. Ours is 15%. I think 15 or 17%. So we're not interested. This is a state. We have federal government. If you expect Mr. P2B to begin to criticize Governor Lesoti to make you feel happy, he knows Governor Lesoti. He knows that Governor Lesoti is grounded in that field. He has dealt with Governor Lesoti. Governor Lesoti has handled a lot of things beyond what you know. So it is not just enough to see criticism as a platform to draw traffic on social media. People applaud you. That is just we have serious problem here. We have a very peculiar problem. We have pensioners being owed several months of accumulated pension arrears. And that's some of the things we want to overcome. The government wants to clear that mess, clean up this, and start on a clean slate. That is what we are desirous of doing, because we can't continue this way. Yes, today a lot of many civil servants we are celebrating today because their salaries came today, I think December 2023. Ordinarily, we shouldn't be talking about salaries. We shouldn't. If it were in a standard client, who will be talking about salaries? When people are going to space, discussing artificial intelligence, making breakthroughs, and we are discussing payment of salaries. So, if people were human, if people were sincere, if people had empathy and sympathy and compassion, there wouldn't have been any room for workers to be owed the way they were owed in Abia. But that is a very sad history that the governor wants us to overcome at this point in time, and he's putting measures in place. We know that there are shortcomings here and there. We know that we have not gotten it 100% right, and of course the process of getting it 100% right is on. We'll do that so that by this time next year, nobody will, if you receive your salary, it's not news. Nobody will be talking about it every month. We've been paid, we've not been paid. I received full salary, I received half salary. No, there will be no room for that. We move to a whole new level because that system we practice in Abia at a point began to affect our people. Things that are your rights, you began to see them as a privilege done to you by government. So we do not want to uphold that template of mediocrity, that template of oppression, of extortion, of exploitation, of slave mentality. And you are a slave. This man has a dash to. What is your rights? What is due to you? So our governor doesn't want to be seen as somebody that every month he has given and they start. He is not interested. We take it a whole new level. It's our state. It belongs to all of us. We are striving by the special grace of God to build a formidable Abia, a formidable institution that will outlive everyone. And that is why some of us keep saying it, that we are not interested, in building a larger than life image, trying to build our life around government. No, by tomorrow, if the government comes to an end, you start crying, start struggling, doing as if your life has come to an end, because all you came was to loot and loot and loot and build and vow to, I will be here forever. I'm a critical stakeholder. I will be here. I will decide who will be the next governor. I will decide who will be TC chairman, LG chairman, commissioner. This. We're not interested in that. So by the special grace of God, that is the direction we're going. We want to set a standard. We want to set a standard. That is the direction our governor is going. So, and of course, he's the leader. He's in charge, completely in charge. No room for God for that reason. And everybody must queue. Everybody must buy into his ideas, must buy into his vision of doing it completely, different from what was obtainable in the past. By the special grace of God, we'll get to our destination. I think it was the Zik of Africa. He said, the beholds maturity, held a political and civilized mind, that in a democratic dispensation, the views and yearnings of the people must be respected, if fair. So what we are doing is in tandem with the views, the yearnings, the suggestions of our people. Those were the things they demanded from us during the campaigns. Those were the things they thought and hoped and expected us to do. And those are the things we are, striving hard to do. And by the special grace of God, we'll get it right. Okay. Somebody asked the question. I'm trying to see. As a question someone asked, okay, regarding the speculation touching the image of the people, why don't you debunk the rumor about the Port Harcourt road? The governor is smarter and shouldn't let his name be dragged. Thank you, Peter Basil, for your piece of advice. The whole thing was becoming a relay race. Every day they churn out one thing or the other. This is December 15th. Just wait a little. In the next 2 weeks, they will go haywire. They will go gaga once again. They will go crazy. They will go to and do all kinds of things. Ahead of the new year, January or February, when they hope the Supreme Court judgment will be coming, or sponsor all kinds of things. So what we do is that once in a while we respond to some and ignore some, because we do not want to use anyone to give excuses. We do not want to blame anybody for and say, because of this person is distracting us, that's why we're not working, that's why we're not performing, that's why we're not doing what we're supposed to do. We're not interested. So what we do, sometimes we respond to some, if we feel it's necessary to respond. Sometimes we ignore them to fabricate and churn out whatever they desire for whatever reasons. It's our state. The most important thing is that our people are intelligent enough, our people are discerning enough, our people know that this is their government and the government, means well for them. Please, what about the issues of pension payments and its impact to the economy? Of course, we are on it. We told you the governor is going to defray that, and the process is ongoing. And because the governor understands the impact of it, or the impact it will have in the economy. And that is why he is not taking it for granted. Beyond the economic angle, the governor is also viewing it from the moral point of view, because the Bible tells you that a laborer is deserving of his wages. So we are very much on it. Thank you.